ready to go to. So, leviern, take it away.
Okay, hello everyone, my name is leviern. Today I'll be showing you the cloud version of SOUND VOLTEX EXCEED GEAR. Today I have Panga, Azer, and my roommate KBH here who will be commentating alongside. If you would introduce yourselves. みなさんこんにちは、leviernです。僕はコナステをやっています。よろしくお願いします。
Hey everyone, I'm KBH.
Hey everyone, I'm Panga, Andrea Panga.
Hi everyone, I'm Azer. And so, yeah, this is a pretty nice opportunity to have this game at GDQ this year. I'm so happy we were able to actually meet the incentive. It was really close. I think we did really well. So let's find out what this game is about, because I think a lot of people have never heard of this before. So KBH, why don't you tell us a little bit about what SOUND VOLTEX is?
Yeah, so SOUND VOLTEX is part of the Kotabe's lineup of rhythm games that they all branch out underneath the Bamani company, basically. You'll recognize this name from mainly other rhythm games such as Dance Dance Revolution, Beatmania 2DX, Pop-In Music, U-Beat, Dance Rush Stardom, and their newest one recently is Dance Around. Each one of these games has a little bit of a gimmick to it, where, you know, either buttons, or using your feet, or just squares and everything like that. With SOUND VOLTEX specifically, it's 6 buttons and the 2 knobs that you see on the screen here on leviern's hand cam. So let's go ahead and get started. If you want to go ahead and navigate to the first song here, leviern.
All right. Yeah, we'll start the timer when the first song actually plays. So one extra thing that we should probably mention a little bit is, because we did mention this is a PC version. This is a very fancy PC we got here. What's going on?
Yeah, so normally this is, like Azer said, the SOUND VOLTEX EXCEED GEAR cloud version, which is meant to be played on PC. But for us here, we did put it on a cabinet. Oh, that was the 3, 2, 1 start for this timer, by the way. I apologize for that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm very nervous.
No, you're good.
Okay.
But yeah, so we're starting off here with a famous song from Dance Dance Revolution from one of the earlier mixes on EDR Extreme. This is Love Shine, but this is also just a remixed version as well. Going back to what we're talking about, the PC cloud version here, we decided to put it on a cabinet here just because it helps us a little bit better and with showcasing the game in a much better way. This is what you'll see when you go to any of your local arcades that have the game or anything like that.
All right, and as far as what's actually going on screen, Panga, how does this game work, right? So we've got 4 lanes.
So the way this game works is you have 4 lanes, you have 4 buttons up top, which are the white buttons, and you can see there's orange buttons on the bottom. Those correspond to the 6 buttons that you would press during the game. And now as you see here, there's going to be lasers, and those correspond to the knobs. So the pink or red laser, that's going to be the right knob, and the blue laser is going to be the left knob. And that is probably the biggest gimmick of this game, since most other rhythm games you have various amounts of buttons, but this game primarily focuses on laser.
Yeah, there's a lot of interactions with them. You would think, you know, it's only 4 buttons, it's not too bad, but then when you have to consider, you know, if one of your hands has to hold the laser, you know, you've got to be able to reach all the buttons with the other hands, and we'll get into that when we start seeing a little bit of the harder stuff in the game, and we're going to be seeing a hell of a lot of it. So, yeah, SOUND VOLTEX is finally a GDQ. I think I'm very happy that there's a PC version. It's existed for quite some time, but I think last December they updated it to have the latest content, essentially. So they updated the theme to be the current version of the game, which is Exceed Gear, and they made most of the content of the game available through song packs and stuff like that. So it's very nice to have for people who don't live close to arcades.
So leviern just finished a song. He got an ultimate chain, which is basically equivalent to a full combo, where he did not miss a single note or a single knob. So very impressive. That was also a level 4 song. So we're going to currently bump this up to a level 7 song. And the game is on a difficulty from 1 to 20, 1 being the easiest and 20 being the hardest.
Yep. So this next song is a Toho staple. Basically, you'll see this in a lot of rhythm games. You'll see this, you know, if you know about Toho, you usually would know about this. This is Bad Apple.
It's the Toho song.
The Toho song.
The one.
So level 7 is actually probably around the difficulty where most people could start to pick up the game. As you can see here, the laser is going from right to left. You generally only have to turn in the right direction of the knob. So for the right laser, you would turn it left, that's just going left. And the blue laser, if it's going right, you turn it right. It does not matter how fast you turn it, as long as you are turning it in the right direction. So these lower levels, they kind of give you that introductory mechanic, as you can see right here. And it goes back to right and left. As you get into the higher difficulties, the laser patterns become very more complicated, but if you're just starting out, level 7 is pretty much a good way to go.
Yeah, they get quite confusing. I think most of the way they express difficulty with lasers is just what to do with your hands. Sometimes it's really not obvious, but mostly also sometimes it's very visually confusing. Like if both lasers happen at once, and it can get pretty hard to tell which direction they're actually going, even though the pattern visually might look simple.
Another thing to note is there's going to be horizontal lasers where they're completely 9 degrees. All that game matters, all the game checks for is if the knob is turned in that correct direction. You don't actually have to like turn it super hard, 90 degrees or something. You can turn it 1 millimeter and the game will check it and be like, okay, that counts as input. And then you can see the number below his, at the bottom, middle of the game, that's just his max combo currently. So notes, hold notes, lasers, they all count towards that combo.
Yeah, a couple of other things going on screen. We've got a gauge on the right that's essentially the health system of the game. So under the normal playing gauge, you just have to be above 70% to, and that's a perfect play. The first of maybe many, who knows?
Yeah, so the game is out of 10 million. That is the max score, and he got 10 million. So really good job on them.
Yeah, there's some alternative health systems in the game that I'm not sure if we're going to be seeing, but you know there are some harder ones that just require you to survive, essentially. But for all intents and purposes, as long as you're over 70%, you've cleared the song. I don't think we'll be dipping anywhere below that during the showcase. We've got quite the player playing for us today. So we're gonna jump up a little bit in difficulty here. We're gonna look at a 15, which usually I think in a 15 it's still. I think is where you'll start to see a little bit of the more advanced mechanics in the game. Maybe we can talk about that briefly.
So this chart or song is going to feature something called cross hands, where you're generally when you play rhythm games, you want to have the left side with one hand, so the left buttons and the left knob for the left hand, and vice versa. Here you're going to notice that there will be instances where leviern is going to use the right knob with his left hand, and vice versa. And that's honestly one of the biggest hurdles when starting out, because when you are learning the game, you're going to be so hyper-focused on having one side be one hand, one side the other. When you start mixing those up, it can get kind of overwhelming. So this is one of the earliest or easiest difficulties to introduce that concept.
Yeah, I think that's the main staple of the game, really. A lot of similar games like this are pretty static. Like this finger is for this button. Sound Voltex just does not work like that. You need to be very, very versatile. As we can already see, we said earlier, this game goes up to 20. This is only a 15, and you're already seeing a lot of these like pretty complicated patterns. If you take a look at the hand cam for a lot of these, you have to move around a lot. And I think that's what makes the game so much fun, really.
One more thing to mention about this game is the max score is 10 million, but mainly you want to focus on the 3 big numbers. That's what most players do. And a good goal usually is to get a 990, which is rank S. And that is a good goal since it kind of tests your timing skills and also if you can hit patterns and knobs. So ideally we'll hit above 990 for each song in this showcase. Ideally even maybe a perfect score. We've already seen one. Who knows, maybe there'll be more.
We've got a little bit of time for a donation here if you'd like.
Sure thing. We have $25 from Kat, who says, always go for more rhythm game exhibitions. Thank you for working towards such a great cause.
All right, so we're going to do something pretty funny here. So next song is going to be a song that leviern has never played. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So the next song is going to be Daisycutter by Etia. As you can see on the lamps and everything on the side there, he does not have any play on it currently. He has a 0 score. This is what is considered a sight read. He will be doing this, basically completely blind, and this stresses a lot of different skills and really stresses his ability to execute said skills that are involved with the game here. For Daisycutter specifically, it is mainly a heavily technical knob chart, as you can see by starting with these knob patterns that are getting a little bit more difficult already.
So you're gonna see there's like a little staircase pattern, and one thing you know about that is you just need to turn the laser in that direction constantly. You don't really need to kind of slant it continuously.
Yeah, so even though this is his first time playing this, there's a couple of different difficulties for each of the songs in the game, right? So this is going to be the exhaust difficulty, which is usually, it's either the maximum one, like the highest one, or the one right before. In this case, it's the one right before. We're playing the level 17 right now. There is a level 19 that is pretty much the most tricky chart in the game. It is incredibly difficult to play. So we're a little bit familiar with the song at least, but yeah, this is going to be the first time playing this difficulty. And the reason we're doing this is there's kind of a common misconception that a lot of these patterns can be memory. But as you play Sound Voltex a little bit more, there's kind of like an instinct that you can build up, and you can kind of predict where things are going. So as you can see, that he's never played this before, still doing quite well, right? So.
Yeah, so this is where you really start to see the game kind of throw lots of different patterns, and 17 is probably what is regarded as one of the biggest walls a player will get to once they start progressing the game.
Yeah, it's when they start throwing you all these really complicated concepts. A lot of very, very tricky hand positions and crossovers. So even for knob patterns like this, it gets really absurd trying to figure out which direction you're trying to go.
Nice, he gets an
and
S.
We will be S ranking that on sight read very well.
Impressive.
All right, well, for the next song, you've already heard it not too long ago. we didn't know about this, but here we go. We're gonna be playing B. We just saw this on the Not ITG showcase. Shoutouts to those guys, by the way. Fantastic job. It was super impressive, and we definitely appreciate all the care and love that they showed towards the Sound Voltex showcase. Well, we're gonna be seeing this song again in its original format, and you're about to find out why it's called B.
So one thing to make a note of really is that with the 4 white buttons, they're labeled as BTA, BTB, BTC, and BTD on leviern's hand cam here. So pay attention closely to how many times the B button is going to be hit during the course of this song. It'll start picking up, and if chat, you want to get ready for your B spam, B emojis, everything that you got.
So we moved on to level 18, and one thing to note is going from one level up to the next, so going from 17 to 18 is actually a pretty big gap. You think, oh, one level is just, whatever. It's not until you really master 17 before you can even start passing 18. And this is actually regarded as one of the harder 18s too.
Yeah. I mean, we're about to see the main thing of the song, but even then, the rest of the song is very, very complicated to play as well. And here it is.
And yep, that was entirely on button B.
Yeah. All perfects as well. We didn't really mention this too much, but as with most rhythm games, there's a timing system with this. We haven't seen what it looks like to not get a perfect yet, I believe. So we might be seeing that a little bit later on. There we go, 999.
999. That was very close to a perfect score.
Yeah, one really
Very
tricky thing that
impressive.
can happen on a chart like this is there's kind of like an error check. If so, obviously you have to hit the B button quite often, quite fast. So if you get one miss on it, it can kind of chain. So you can get something called an error chain. It can essentially just destroy your score entirely. Luckily, it didn't happen. Didn't even get any non-criticals here. So. But we're going to be stepping up to level 19s. We're going to be playing a couple of level 19s. This one's a little bit of an older one, Alpha Omega. And when this initially came out, I believe in 2015, this was basically just a boss song for the game. So it's got a little bit of everything. And now we're starting to see what it's like to have something at the very top level.
Yeah, Alpha Omega specifically is a good stress test of like basically all the skills that come into play when playing Sound Voltex here. You have very strong one-handed patterns. You have a lot of technical knob patterning. Basically, just one hand has to basically run across the entire button field, along with a ton of just really fast patterning. All culminating in the fact that it's also 208 BPM to hit all these patterns correctly and in time as well.
One thing to mention also is anytime you see a white laser in this game, that just means that the blue and pink lasers overlap. So it's not any new laser, it's just something to help visually. Another thing to mention is leviern's, he intentionally made the notes go down the screen faster. If you remember at the very beginning of the showcase, the notes were going kind of slow. As you get more familiar with the game, you can start bumping up
Look
what
at
is
the
known
hands
as
here. Look at the hands here. I'm going to cut you off. Look at the hands. This is what this game is.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's not over.
And that is why Sound Voltex
Incredible.
is such a cool game to watch. Your hands are very versatile. There's a lot of chord patterns like that require you to move your hand in the middle and transition with that through other patterns. It's very impressive. As we get to the end of the song. Wow. Yeah, it's another full
He hits
combo.
a full combo.
$9.99.
Incredible.
So let's be honest. Before this one, we were playing it up a little bit, because the levels were a little bit on the lower side of things. This is really difficult. This is incredibly impressive.
The next song we're going to be showcasing here is Blastix Riotz by Camellia, who has been participating a little bit in chat here and there. Shout outs to Camellia. This is a nice casual walk in the park 256 BPM chart with a lot of death trills, a lot of just insane button jacks, and just overall very difficult patterning at a very high BPM, even comparatively to Alpha Omega.
Yeah, this came out around the same time as the previous song, and it acted for a long time as essentially the speed chart. This is just the speed check. It's really exhausting to be able to play this fast, and you have to do it for quite a long time.
Also, if you want to go ahead and run some donations during this song, it would probably be a good time.
I would love to. We have one specifically for this portion in particular from Star Rod Kirby, who donated $120 and says, "This showcase already be gobsmacking. leviern's skill is just simply unmatched. You guys aren't ready for the 20s up ahead."
Yeah, thank you, Star Rod, for that. Appreciated. Definitely, we're going to showcase quite a few of the 20s. We got to work up to it though. So you'll see like sort of like a boss rush at the end here, and we'll indicate when that happens. But as you can see here, there's that one break session right in the middle of the song here, and now we start going into just a lot of burst patterning coming up here towards the end of Blastix here.
Yeah, this patterning right here really showcases what I was mentioning earlier with the chord patterns, having to move your hand in the middle. It's quite a common theme for more higher level patterns. Check out this ending though. It's a little bit fast.
But wait, there's more.
Very nice. Actually, I didn't even notice where we swapped to this as well, but when we were talking about the health gauge of the game, we swapped to the harder version of it. So now it's something called excessive gauge. So now instead of just requiring 70% to pass, now it starts at 100, it's more punishing, and if you ever drop to 0, you just fail out. So it's a little bit of a difference. It's supposed to be a little harder, a little bit more impressive. But for now, we'll go on to the next song. So what's this one about?
Yeah, so this is GERBERA For Finalists. This was a song in the Tenkaichi medley, which was a big song competition that happened between a bunch of the different rhythm gaming companies such as Sega, Taito, Bandai, with all their big games. You'll see them swap over songs between each other as a friendly sort of thing going on. And with GERBERA For Finalists here, this was the final song as a site tournament for the showcase for Sound Voltex. And this song in particular, GERBERA, the original mix, was put into Tunathum, My, Groove Coaster, Sound Voltex, and Taiko. With GERBERA For Finalists, when they released it, it was a song by Tag. It was remixed by Cosmo, and it just showcases a bunch of different Tag songs that you'll hear in there, such as Possession, Zephyranthus, and just other things in here. And you'll see and hear a lot of patterning that comes from it, such as this part right here with the laser slams. That was just clone of the Possession jumps.
One thing I really like about this chart as well is there's a lot of different valid ways to play it. A pretty cool thing with some of the higher level stuff is it's kind of up to interpretation what you're supposed to do with your hand to play the patterns. So different players will have different strategies on what to do. Sometimes you can cross over, sometimes you don't need to. You can stretch your hands a little bit, and this chart does a pretty good job at showcasing one way to play it. But if you watch another player play this, they might actually just do something entirely different, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, one thing you probably notice is you develop habits. Each person's different. So if you start understanding like which hand you're better with doing buttons or knobs, you can kind of develop your play style around that. That's one of the neat things about this game.
This is also one of the harder level 19s. Not one of the very hardest ones, but it's definitely up there. Mostly because of a little funny thing coming up right now. Oh, so close. Yeah, that is how many is that? 41 notes per second right there, I believe. It's pretty fast.
Yeah, and you have to hit all 4 buttons up top too.
Yeah.
And the 2 oranges immediately after.
Casual 1 near and 5 errors on that for 997, Just mostly picking those up in just that in the 41 notes per second portion there. All right. So we're getting into 2 songs here coming up. First one here is Take. Take is by the same artist as B that we heard earlier, so you'll hear some similar rhythms, you'll hear some similar vocal samples and stuff like that. But the big thing is going to be keep an eye out on that lane speed at the top left there.
Yeah, this is going to be our introduction to BPM gimmicks, I suppose. So a lot of speed changes required. This game does allow you to change your speed while playing by holding the start button and then turning a knob. Sometimes that can be pretty tricky to find the right time to do, so I'm not really sure if we're going to be seeing it for this chart. Hey, we're seeing it right now, so we just did a very slight speed change there. It can be pretty hard to find the time to actually do it, because obviously you probably need both your hands to have access to both start and a knob, so it can't be while there's anything else going on. You have to be very quick about it, so even just changing speeds in order to play stuff like this can kind of be a skill in itself.
Yeah, if you try to turn the knob while the sub button is holding, it won't even register the laser. So that's why it's very important to figure out kind of dead areas of a song, so that way you can change the note speed here. Ideally, he wants to keep his speed the same, so that way he can read it. But again, it's tough when songs change BPM in the middle of the song. And this one changes quite frequently. If you notice on the top left, sometimes you'll see a blue number or a red number. And that kind of gives you a heads up of the song's about to change its BPM.
Some really unconventional rhythms being played here. A lot of very weird snap divisions that you basically just don't ever get to hear. Like this one where the beat is divided in 7 notes.
So coming up is probably one of the most drastic BPM changes of the song. We'll see if he does change the BPM here with the start button. He does. So you can see he turns it incredibly low as the song starts to speed up forward.
It's also worth pointing out for this section, there's a bunch of lasers on screen sometimes, like this. You don't actually have to hit any of those. They're not moving, right? So they kind of hit themselves.
Hits you with a dab.
Yeah, the lane speed scales with BPM, so when the song suddenly decides to drop down to a BPM of 5, it's quite hard to time the last note. All right. There's a little bit of a thing going on for this song.
Yep, leviern will be removing his headphones here as he needs to focus a little bit for this part here coming up. Just some key strats that he needs to handle here. But this is the other song I was talking about in this sort of block. I forgot to mention that both Take and Doppelganger here are from BMF, which is basically a song contest regarding another game that goes out in Japan for another rhythm game, basically, and they create all their own original music and charting and stuff like that. And they are kind enough to lend their music and things like that over to other games like Sound Voltex here. But this is Doppelganger by Leaf. There's an interesting little gimmick in here that we'll see coming up towards the tail end of the song. As you can see, this is down to level 18, but so the patterning isn't as strict, but the gimmick is, how would I say it?
Surprising.
Yeah, surprising. This will be a good time for some donations as well, Motoss.
Cool beans. Looks like we got $20 from Ben, who says, all aboard for Sound Voltex. We have another $25 from Sound Voltex Enjoyer, who just says, guys, you don't want to miss it. True.
He's right.
A Wild Chancey appeared, donated $100 and says, Rhythm Games hype. Brent sends a $1,000 donation and simply says, that was incredible. Thank you for all these donations, y'all. We couldn't have gotten here without all of you donating for this incentive game, and it's such an impressive run to see. I'm so glad we made it.
Huh? Wait, where'd leviern go?
What happened?
I'm not sure.
Did the game freeze?
What? Wait, who's that? Is that a clown? What's going on over here?
Where'd leviern go?
I don't know.
No one told me this was a co-op run.
Yeah, I don't think we knew either.
I don't know who this is. They're pretty good, though.
Yeah, they're very good.
Yeah, 998.
Glad they can take over for leviern while he seems to have disappeared for the moment.
I guess this is the Sound Voltex version of the couples charts. Like we were just watching, you know, play co-op.
That's a clown.
The clown of 24 stairs.
Yeah, that's interesting. Wait. Okay. That's just leviern in her clown suit. Okay. so we're going over here. This is the Clown 24 Stairs by Yu Asahina. We're back into the level 19s folder here. A lot of the Clown 24 Stairs is reference to what you're going to see towards the end here. Is going to be a pattern called as stairs, which is basically you'll see the white buttons here, the BT buttons, just basically go up or down a staircase, basically. And the 24th is in reference to the beat measurement is going to be, so it's going to be in 24th notes.
And this is at a very high BPM as well, so this is one of the fastest songs in the game, not in terms of BPM, but in terms of the patterning. It is going to be extremely dense. I would say even looking at all of the other 20s in the games, you could probably say this is pretty much the fastest 19 in the game, just in terms of how much is going to be on screen.
Yeah, there's going to be one part in particular in the chart that you need to pay special attention to. It's coming up pretty shortly.
All right,
There
don't blink. All crit. That's all perfect timing. I'm starting to think this clown's kind of good, man.
just a little.
All right, we got a 998 on that.
Nice one miss on just the trailing end of a hold there. Oh, leviern's back. That's good. That's good. Okay. What do we got up next here? Oh, okay. So now we're going into sort of the boss rush I was talking about earlier here, where we're going to talk a little bit about the history of Sound Voltex as a competitive game here, talking about the Konami Arcade Championships and these songs coming up here. So Sound Voltex was first featured in the Konami Arcade Championships back as early as like 2013, 2014. That was like the first or second rendition of the championships here. Everlasting Message here, however, was shown off as a sight read for the two final competitors of Sound Voltex back in the 4th KAC, which is back in 2015. And when this song first came out, both of those finalists actually failed this on sight read.
That can maybe give an idea of how impressive it is to just watch someone that's currently got a full combo on it, right? So.
But yeah, it's something at the bottom. Sorry, go ahead.
It's something that's pretty interesting with KAC is they just hold a tournament, and then at the end of the tournament, they just make their top players just play a brand new song that nobody's ever seen before. They have their little events for it. There's a special version of the chart in game with some visual effects that might not normally be there. It's a very interesting experience. Happens every year, and it's always a pleasure to watch.
One thing to mention about this is leviern is actually playing on mirrored, which basically means the entire song is flipped left to right. So the buttons on the left are now on the right knob, left knob is now the right knob. That's just mainly for personal preference if you have a strong suit on a certain side.
What if you have a clown suit?
Oh, Yami there. I guess you just gotta play it out. Put on the clown suit.
Oh, what? It's so close to the full combo on that. 999.6. That is absurd, man.
That's just the one miss without any nears.
Yeah, that would have been a perfect play. But yeah, again, the top players in the world failed this the first time they played it, so I mean, it really puts in context how crazy this is now. But it's about to get a lot worse.
Yep. So the next song we're going to show off here was debuted at the next KC, the 5th KC, at the beginning of 2016.
We also just saw this one, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, this was debuted here in Sound VOLTEX back then, was transferred over to DDR, and people just went absolutely nuts with it, bringing it into whatever they can. This is the first 20 of our boss rush, and you'll see from here moving forward, we're going to be basically just playing the 20s. With this, there is an interesting gimmick at towards the middle section of it, and if you can figure out what happens basically on top of how difficult this chart is, just adds another level of difficulty to being a sight read for the finalists when it was first shown.
So around the time this came out, so we mentioned the game scales up to level 20, right? But during this time, it actually only scaled up to 16. So this chart was essentially so much harder than all of the other 16s. They just went, hey, let's just re-rate everything and just make it go up to 20. And this is still, to this day, one of the hardest 20s in the game. So it was really ahead of its time in terms of difficulties. Patterns like this just require such a crazy amount of coordination. A lot of people who may play rhythm games are going to look at that and think maybe it's not so bad. It's just 4 buttons, but the introduction of like the FX buttons on the thumbs makes that pattern incredibly difficult.
Yeah, there are currently only 17 20s in the game, and there are over 119. So it just shows you how drastic the difficulty gets when you get to the max level.
As you can see here, the visual gimmick that I was talking about earlier showed up. This is the first time that, you'll see that the lane disappears completely, just adding another level of visual gimmick to try to read through as you're trying to figure out where these buttons are located normally and everything like that. And your only indication of where anything is based off of the that long white line that you'll see sometimes as just the flat measure indicator.
Wow, you hit the entire ending. One of the hardest parts of the song as well.
.996, 17 years with 2 misses, Still definitely difficult with just how difficult and technical Lachryma is. So after that, we waited for basically an entire year for the next KAC. KACs, like I said, they're one big time a year where they get to introduce all their new fancy little gimmicks and stuff like that. Along with the change from 2016 to 2017, we also had a version upgrade for the arcade game from Gravity Wars, which was what Lachryma was released in, to Heavenly Haven here. So you'll see a bit of a theming difference here. You'll see a bit of a just overall charting style difference, but still overall just heavy difficulty. And again, these are sight reads back when these were first released. So you can only imagine how the competitors felt when they were just going into this, full nerves, grand finals, and this was basically their ending.
Yeah, so something that's quite unique about pretty much every single 20, except maybe one of them, is that they all have very unique patterns that you're not going to see anywhere else. So all of them, they just figure out a way to use your hands on the button layout that no other charter in the game has thought of, and so a lot of them require a ridiculous amount of practice, and so when you play them for the first time, it just seems really daunting because it's obviously a pattern that you've never seen before. So I think this is the first time we're seeing a couple of those patterns. A lot of pretty confusing laser directions, and as well as a couple of difficult chord patterns on this one that we saw at the start. We'll be seeing them a little bit later on as well, but yeah.
And on top of the difficult patterns, there's also different visual gimmicks in pretty much each 20. So here the background, you can see there's two characters. They're going to be both visual and affecting kind of the gameplay as well. We'll see later in the other 20s. You don't see them in any chart, which is why it makes playing 20s a little more special in a way.
Patterns like that one, before this came out, not in the game. This is really difficult. You see the lane goes away again. Man, we're getting so close to a lot of these being full combos. And again, just to put it in perspective, I think in North America, I think only 3 or 4 players have ever full comboed any 20 at all, if I'm not wrong. So it's quite insane to get this close every single time. We just got 1 miss on that one again, so...
It also demonstrates how incredibly difficult it is to get a perfect score.
Mm-hmm.
And leviern here has quite a bit of perfect scores on the 20s already.
Yep, you'll see it if you look through the song select as he scrolls through it with the golden P indicating a perfect ultimate chain. But a little bit more history going with Sound Voltex here with KC the 6th in 2017. They decided to do 2 sight reads rather than just the one here. This is the second one here with Illness Lilin. The first one was a nice brisk pace of 256 BPM, and they decided, oh, what's a little bit more? And decided to make this at 280 BPM.
This is probably the fastest patterning in any 20. Maybe that's been challenged recently with a lot of the more recent 20s, but this, at least for a very long time, was essentially the final speed boss of the game. 280 BPM is just ridiculously fast. Seems pretty easy when you just look at him play, though.
Yeah, not only is it fast, but it's pretty tiring. So even if you think you can hit the buttons fast enough, you need to get the endurance to blast the entire chart.
So earlier on, I was talking about how different songs have different strats that we can use here. So this is a pattern I always like to show off as an example. leviern does not do this. So if you look at his hands, he's actually extending his thumbs while holding the effects buttons to be able to hit those knobs. Another way that other people can play that is essentially to do a double crossover. So grabbing the left knob with your right hand, grabbing the right knob with your left hand, and then flipping them back over to hit the FX buttons. So a lot of the charts like that have very unique patterns like that that you just don't really find in any other rhythm game. I think that's what draws a lot of people to this game. It's always very, very interesting to see. It's a little bit hard to grasp just looking at the gameplay, but once you play it and you get this pattern, you're like, wait, how do I play this? It just seems impossible. There it is.
He gets it.
That's a full combo on a 20. Like I said,
That's incredible.
This is ridiculously hard to do. You could count the people in North America that have a 20 full combo on one hand.
Yep. And in North America, leviern is the only person with a perfect on 20s at all in general here. Coming up next, now we move on to Finale. Konami decided that we can only show off this stuff once a year at the beginning of a year. No. So they decided to finally start pushing a lot more boss updates in August. As the community coins it, the August update, which you'll see every year, basically, where they introduce sort of the sisters to the boss songs that are released during the Konami Arcade Championship. Finale here is considered to be the sister to Heaven, where, if you listen to the rhythming and stuff like that, you can see that they do feed into each other pretty well.
Yeah, or another way to consider these is sequels, I guess. It's always the same artist, similar art, similar song name.
You can even see some similar patterns as well with sequel songs.
If you've been paying attention for this one, I think the most recognizable one is just going to be some of the laser patterns that can happen. I was talking earlier when it was happening, I was saying some of the laser patterns. This one can be a little bit confusing as to which side you're going and which direction you're going. So this kind of does the same type of pattern, but there's slight differences, which what makes it pretty close, but also, you still have to learn them again. I think this would be a good time for donations.
Sure thing. We've got one here from D. Doan who says, Hi, Lev. Glad you get to showcase this to everyone and for a great cause as well. Your Dino Nugget buddy, D. Doan, less than 3. We also have a $100 donation here from Mad Mortigan. It says, my jaw hurts from watching Sound Voltex. It's been on the floor for 10 minutes straight. Most freaking amazing gameplay I've ever seen. I agree. This is so wild. We have a $25 donation from Ben, who says, speedrunning a costume change on top of all that action? What an incredible run.
So an interesting thing that we didn't really talk about much is what makes this game pretty cool too is they actively remix the songs that you're playing through gameplay. So whenever you're holding down an FX button, which is the orange buttons at the bottom, or sometimes when you turn a knob, they layer in sound filters on top of the actual song. And because different difficulties have those aspects of gameplay, you know, the FX buttons will be at different times or for different lengths of time, every single one of the difficulties actually sounds different when you play them because you're essentially remixing the song as you're playing them, right? So a lot of time they'll add, you know, you're kind of like DJing, you know? But it's very interesting because sometimes as you'll play this game and progress through it, you might be playing a lower difficulty and then, you know, you might grind out a song for a while and then eventually when you get better at the game, you'll end up playing a higher difficulty of that song and suddenly it sounds entirely different. So it's pretty cool. I bring that up because at the last part of that song, on Finale, they have a lot of FX going on, something called repeat, that basically just adds a lot of objects on screen. So sometimes they add a lot of difficulty through that. So even though the song might not have something going on, well, you can just make the song have something go on.
Yep, and as we move on here to the next 20, that was during this first August update with 20s in it, they decided, you know, if we release 2 20s during KC, we have to release 2 20s during the August update too. So they released this alongside with Finale, which is Whiteout. Biggest thing about this song is going to be you'll see a lot of very heavy technical patterning, even though the BPM is, I believe this is the first 20 that's below 200 BPM. But you'll see a lot of just button rushes and a lot of technical knob patterns like that. And just overall very strange execution that needs to happen.
Yeah, that knob pattern is a pretty good demonstration of something we talked about, where a lot of the times the knob pattern itself on screen looks like it's pretty simple. You know, it's just going left and right. But which knob is going left and which one is going right can get confusing real fast. So that specific pattern is one where people have to specifically just look at like a video of the chart or like an image of the objects in the chart and learn it that way in order to be able to play it, because it's so unintuitive to play. It's very challenging, even though visually, you know, they're just wiggling. Another beautiful score at 997 on that. I would say this is probably the second or third most technical 20 in the game, so that's very impressive.
Yeah, for being, you know, one of the few 20s that are below 200 BPM, it definitely doesn't look like it, which is how, you know, fast those burst patterns are.
All right, it's time for a longtime favorite now.
Yep.
What's coming up?
So moving on here, we have I. I was released during the 7th KAC up in 2018. This is by Chroma. It is a, you know, casual walk in the park, like I said, 225 BPM. Biggest thing about this is that, you know, we've had a lot of button technical charts. I is considered to be the first knob technical chart. And with it being released as a sight read during the 7th KAC, you know, they got a little tired of doing the same old, oh, let's, you know, make the lane disappear gimmick. So you'll see what happens here as, you know, you can see in the background. It starts off pretty mild, you know, and it'll slowly start to introduce elements that you get to see.
I think it's important to put this in context one more time, though, because we just saw a bunch of crazy mod charts that had absolutely insane visuals and honestly, it's really hard to read what's on screen. So just remember that this was made for a competition where the people are sight reading this, and there was absolutely no warning whatsoever that the visual gimmick of the start was going to happen. So if you're curious about that, I would recommend watching the VOD for that event. It's one of my favorite videos ever. Just everyone is just extremely confused. Probably a good time as well to talk about the backgrounds, all the characters popping up. This game kind of has its own characters, and they kind of build their own storylines and stuff like that. So these aren't just random characters, you know. They all have names, and they're all kind of part of the story, more or less.
Yep. But as I was saying with the visual gimmick, you know, why make the lane disappear? Make everything disappear.
That makes sense of this.
Just another example of a laser part that just seems completely overwhelming.
My favorite little visual gimmick when they first introduced this for all the spectators as well is that when they showed Rassus and Tamaneka, which is the girl and the little ball cat on the screen in the back, after the screen blinked, they shut off all the lights of the wings and everything as well, and they started making Tamaneko spin in her hands.
$9.98.
Yeah, casual $9.98, no big deal.
Just casual, you know.
Only knob misses, no big deal.
I think that's kind of to be expected on that one. Even a player this good is gonna struggle sometimes on those knobs. It's so hard to tell what's going on.
Yep. So after I was done, that was, you know, during the 7KC, we go into August now with the next 20 that was released, Cronier, also by Camellia. Shout out to Camellia in chat again. Blistering 234 BPM with this great burst at the beginning here.
You might start noticing that pretty much all of the hardest stuff in this game is made by Camellia. A good chunk of it is.
Not only that, there's going to be multiple 2020s in this showcase as well. And this is just the first one.
But yeah, in terms of gameplay, when this was made, it's not too complex relatively to everything that was out at the time. Even nowadays, this is relatively simple in terms of patterning. It's just really fast and really dense. So this is more of a mechanics check.
Yeah, so throwing a lot of chords as well.
Yeah, there's a couple of pretty unique patterns and some unusual rhythms going on here, but we've got what do you even want to call it? We've got the hamburger pattern coming up.
Yep, just gotta build the hamburger. I think we got time for one donation before the hamburger starts showing up, though. Motoss, if you can get that in.
Sure thing. We've got one here from Monzarius, who donated $100 and says, lovely to see some Sound Voltex representation on GDQ. I haven't been active in a while, but this makes me want to dust off my controller to give it a go again. Love from Sweden, less than 3.
All right. Let's put some hamburgers.
You guys hungry?
And this part is just a lot going on.
I remember that burst at the beginning.
We didn't really talk about that either, but I'm sure you noticed by now the knobs or the lasers actually can go off track. Since, you know, there's a track going down the screen, and, you know, there's a pretty clear, you know, like blue and pink part. No, they don't care about that. They can just go off the sides.
No knob misses. Just one hold tick and one button. Strong showing there. All right, what's up next here? So now we go into the next year here during the 8th KC. This was on the cusp between two versions coming out here. This was the transition from Heavenly Haven into Vivid Wave, the 4th to the 5th version of Sound Voltex for the arcade. not much to really say about this chart. Very fast, very technical patterning. Just watch the visual imagery in the background here, which you'll see soon coming up, with the two characters that was shown on the song jacket, left in the blue and right in the red. And you'll see here just a little bit of like a war going on between these two characters here, and you'll see it in the shown in the chart.
Are named left and right.
We probably have time for one donation here.
Alrighty, we've got $50 from Pharaoh Conch, who says, "Rhythm block hype."
I always really like this section because it's a pretty good demonstration of how much you need to move your hands around. I'm not sure how many patterns like this we've seen so far, but sometimes you'll have like a knob and a chord of 3 notes at the same time. You gotta spread your hand, pretty wide for that. The controller's not that small, so hitting 3 buttons at once is actually not the easiest thing.
Coming up here is one of the cooler visual effects. You can see the battle taking place in the background as you're playing the song between left and right.
The defining pattern of this song too. Watch the hand movements for that part. It's really fast.
Very clean.
It's required to play that as well. You don't really have any other way to play that. You gotta move your hands around, so a lot of the 20s just are pretty physically demanding. Even though you're kind of just hitting buttons, you have to move your arms a lot to be able to hit the buttons.
So after, during the 7K, they only released just 120. They decided to go back to releasing 220s again here. They released Feel Seasickness, also by Camellia. This is technically his second 20 here.
I believe so.
And first we saw with Cronier, there was very heavy emphasis on speed and just button patterning here. If you pay attention to when the song jacket was on the screen, you saw in the little BPM corner that they showed a range of BPMs. That can give you an idea of about what's about to happen here coming up real soon.
I was saying earlier, we saw the second or third most technical 20. This would probably be number 1.
Yeah, even if it doesn't seem as fast, it's incredibly technical, especially with the holds. Since this chart has quite a bit of tricky hold parts, like right here. It seems simple, but it's very difficult to hit.
Half speed, super dense, very, very unconventional rhythms there. Snappings of 5 notes instead of 4. It's really, really, really tricky. And just because once wasn't enough, we'll just have more of it.
And on top of that, this is actually considered to be one of the easier 20s as well. So if you're just finally breaking it into the 20 level, this is probably going to be one of your first clears.
Maybe you can see why the song is called Feel Seasickness.
Yeah, with all the BPM changes and just the rocking back and forth lane movements, it just really emphasizes the idea of being on a boat and just, never really expect what the sea gives you.
Oh, that is a ridiculous score.
Yep, 998. I think that was probably you got 2 misses on just knobs, which, can be very tricky in a BPM change setting, since the knobs just kind of have a mind of their own sometimes.
It's worth noting, for most of these 20s, not many people worldwide have ever gotten perfect plays on them. Leviern here is actually the only person basically in the West to have a perfect score on a 20, and he has, I think, 10 of them.
11.
That's 11 now.
11, right. New update.
So here we go into the August update after the 8th KC. You know, this was back in 2019 now. This is Ego, which is considered to be the sequel to Embryo. You'll start to hear a lot of similar rhythming, also by the same artist for both of them, which was Kabocha in the Japanese text there.
I would consider this to be one of the simpler 20s. It's very difficult still, but there's not much that stands out in terms of the patterning or anything. It's just very fast and quite difficult. But compared to a lot of the other 20s that have like a defining thing that makes you go, oh, I need to learn that one. This doesn't really seem to really have that. There's a pretty difficult chord pattern that we'll see soon, but beyond that, it's pretty comfortable if you're able to play at this level. I believe this was also the fastest 20 to get perfected, right?
That's correct. Yeah, speaking of speedruns,
Yeah,
as soon as the
there you
song
go.
got released, a lot of the top level players, they want to try to get like the first perfect, and I believe it was within 24 hours of the song being released, someone got perfect.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit over 12 hours or something like that was the people were keeping track of it on the Twitter updates from all the top players out in Korea and Japan when this first got released.
Alright, so you're gonna get to see probably what is the defining difficulty part of this. The camera's gonna do a couple funny things during this part. It's already done a couple funny things, but yeah.
You might have noticed that the camera does the 360 in some songs. This one does even faster, and you have to hit notes while it's spinning. 997.
Very strong showing for Leviern here. You know, absolutely just blazing through all these 20s back to back is no small feat stamina-wise either. Like I definitely would have been out of it by, you know, the second 20. And to be able to play it at such a high level and so consistently as well. Insane. Going on to the next 20 here, we have could it be a Spatiotemporal ShockWAVE Syndrome, or as some people call it, ShockWAVE Syndrome, some people call it This is also by Camellia, as the sequel to Feel Seasickness. You'll see, again, the BPM changes notated on that song jacket there earlier. And you'll see a lot of similar rhythming, but you'll notice something a little bit different about this compared to Feel Seasickness.
So if you remember earlier in the showcase when the chart completely stopped for multiple seconds, this one, it kind of surprises you sometimes where it stops for only half a second and then keeps going. So it can throw people off, like right there.
Yeah, it doesn't have nearly as many very difficult sections like the hold section of the Feel Seasickness, but kind of makes up for it. Check out this part here where, oh, actually doesn't do that. So normally, if the player was human, they would change their speed there while holding the FX buttons. Leviern kind of just knows the patterns here, has played this enough times, kind of can read that fast. Usually players will, I would say, read between a speed of 8 to 9. He was just playing at a speed of 11, which is, as you see, not quite readable. I think for most people, it's pretty ridiculously fast. So, I guess you kind of get a glimpse of what it's like when the song more or less usually requires you to change your speed. What happens when you don't do it? Looks like that.
Yeah, that's going back to how you can play this game in many different ways. You have the choice to slow it down or play whichever you're more comfortable with, which is one of the great things when you're learning this game, or even playing. So many different ways to attack patterns.
This is another one of those sections where you just gotta memorize this. There's this.
Yeah, I like to call it the brake check.
$9.99. Oh my lord.
$9.99.
Wow.
That is
So close to perfect.
ridiculous. So this is actually one of the only 20s that we're going to see in the showcase. I think one of 4 in the showcase that leviern does not have a perfect score on. So to get so close to that is actually quite absurd.
Yep. So that was at the end of 2019. Now we go into 666 by Rough Sketch. This was during the 9th KC held in 2020. You know, we're getting close to the current date. With a nice, very casual high speed of 666 BPM sustained. Azer, do you want to talk a little bit about what that does to the engine here a little bit as well?
Of course. So a lot of the holds and lasers, the way they tick to count as a part of the chain, is directly tied to the BPM of the song. So a song being this absurdly fast BPM can actually affect it a lot. It means you have a lot less time between the patterns, like at the end of the hold, to actually transition to other patterns because it's ticking so much faster. So as you can see, we kind of just got into this and he's already at 900 combo. There's not really been anywhere close to 900 notes. It's just that the lasers and holds are actually ticking so fast. One thing that's important to mention for this as well is this still today is maybe considered the hardest song in the game. It's been challenged as of maybe last month or 2 ago. We're not quite sure if there's a definite hardest song in the game anymore, but for quite some time this basically was it.
Yeah, and another consequence of the BPM being so high is if you were to not input a laser or a hole, the bar on the right would drop substantially faster, which adds to the difficulty of clearing it, since it really punishes you for mistakes.
Whoa. What's going on? We've got some pretty animation in this game.
Yep. But this is also the first instance of live 2D. Yeah, so this is the first instance of using live 2D for the backgrounding here. This was one of the big features that they released in Sound VOLTEX Wave. You were having a lot of live 2D animation characters and being able to just interact with these characters, you know, rather than just having the still PNGs or anything like that. Really just shows how the engine's evolving and just becoming more insane.
Look at the hand count here. Please look at the hand count here. All perfect, no problem. Right, just a casual 997 on again, pretty much the hardest song in the game. That's insane.
Yep, and like I said, it was introduced here at the 9th KC, and its great visual gimmick was that, you know, a Kuriha in the background there, just chopping the lanes in half. So basically, you're basically forced to be sort of split-eyed. A lot of players do try to, you know, get an idea for it, try to note the difficulty of, you know, when they do a BC pattern in the middle and stuff like that, and just kind of remember it.
A nice little small thing about that chart is there were actually 3 laser patterns that wrote out a 6.
That's right. As the chart played out, it slowly spelled it out, but we're going to get into Welcome here. And this one is probably the most straining 20. All of the 20s kind of have their own specialty. This one is just full of what we call jacks. It's just very, very repeated patterns on the same button, right? So as you can see, you got to mash quite fast. That's basically the whole chart for this one.
Yep, it's very stamina intensive here, especially at a time when this chart came out, as I noted earlier. The 9th KC happened right before the cusp of the COVID-19 pandemic happening. So Welcome here was introduced, you know, in the middle of that when Konami's still trying to push out updates as best as it can for its audience, you know, to try to showcase, hey, we're still alive, you know, we're still doing things. So this was the first 20 that was introduced during the COVID-19 pandemic, and just being such a stamina-intensive chart really just showcases a lot of things that can happen.
I think you've got a rare break for a donation here.
Of course, we've got $50 $50 here from Urza, who says, proud of you, leviern. Watching you crush this for a great cause is amazing. Your old free company, send their love.
And coming up here is one of the more technical patterns as well. Something you really mainly only see in this part.
And as a throwback, if you there's a lot of like error checking in this game. So like if you press a button when you're not supposed to, but you're still within like the timing range of another button on that same lane, it will still give you an error. So during those patterns, if you actually get the pattern wrong and you hit when you're not supposed to on one of the lanes, you'll just error chain everything else on that lane. So it can be quite tricky. You have to play it just right. You can't really mash it. You have to play it perfectly in order to be able to play the pattern.
Yeah, moving on to the next song here, we have on the list Mayhem by Rough Sketch. We were talking earlier about how, you know, the 666 was a really high BPM, you know, no big deal, because we have Mayhem here at a nice 998 BPM as for the sequel to 666.
And watch what that does to the chain at the very beginning. The first 10 seconds, it's just going to be the fastest 1,000 combo you'll ever see. Just started, and we're at 800. So that's what it does to the tick rates of these things. So it kind of makes this quite unique in the way scoring works in this game. There's no really relation to combo or anything. It's just however many notes you hit, right, and your timing on them. But because there are so many instances of essentially free score, because, you know, if the laser's going, it's giving you all this free combo. Scoring on this is pretty unique compared to all of the other 20s. So I think this is when people get to this level, they get pretty high scores relatively to the other 20s because of that. But it doesn't really make it any easier or anything. Again, it's really fast. The patterns are still quite complicated. Pretty tricky cross-hand lasers for this section as well. So,
and as a direct result, this chart holds the record for the highest chain or combo. I believe it's over 5,000.
I think it's over 6,000, yeah.
Which makes it perfecting even harder too, because if you want a perfect, you can't miss a single one out of that 5,000, 6,000 combo. And you can see he's over 4,000 currently.
That's another one of those really tricky lizard patterns. It doesn't look too complex, but yeah, so sometimes there's some laser patterns in this game where you can kind of intuitively play them, like they make a lot of sense and it's what you would expect if you play the game for a while. And sometimes they completely just play with you on that expectation and they just do the complete opposite thing. But sometimes there's just so much going on that it's quite hard to see that. So you'll still intuitively play something, but it's just going to be the wrong thing, right? So
and that laser was the only thing you missed.
That's
incredible.
What is that score, man? What is this?
That was Commentator's curse for that miss.
Yeah. Just as of last night, leviern was able to achieve the perfect ultimate chain on that to get his perfect score earlier. And in the game of rhythm games specifically, it is a lot of showing your best possible. So now we move on to the next 20 here. This is the first and currently the only 20 that was released specifically for Sound Voltex EXCEED GEAR Cloud version. This was part of a monthly sub-event, basically, for it to be unlocked for each player's account. Azer, you want to talk about some of the technical patterning in this song?
So if you remember back to the Clown of 24th Stairs, when we had that clown playing, this is going to be pretty similar to that. It's got a lot of 24th notes, which at this BPM is quite absurd to play. You can already kind of see some of it here. A lot of the patterns built around that are going to be pretty tricky, and I think that's most of the difficulty of this song. It's just going to be the very difficult stairs of buttons, and it doesn't really stop. I would say so far, other than 666, this would be one of the harder 20s that we've showcased.
I believe it's only second in the record in order to be perfect ultimate chain by the community as a whole. Mostly because at this time when this song came out, a big Mania player by the name of Jakad started playing, and he was the first person to really just rush to the arcade and after unlocking it and just try to go for the ultimate chain on it, and was able to do so in about, I think in the first day, just a little bit over the time period it took for Ego to get perfect ultimate chain.
Yeah, this is one of the charts that if you play other rhythm games similar to this, is going to be pretty familiar to play. It's mostly just buttons. There's not a lot of complicated things going on in terms of cross hands or any really difficult lasers in this or anything. It's pretty straightforward. It's just really fast buttons. So if you play other similar games, it's going to be a strong suit for you, which is also really cool. A lot of the 20s in this game, we've kind of been mentioning some of them are harder than others, but for the most part, that's going to differ a lot from person to person because all of them have very different skill sets. And there's quite a lot of different skill sets in this game that allow it to have that diversity. So this one is just going to be a more button-focused charts. And it's going to get a 996 on that. And now for something very recent.
Yep. So now we get into, the tail end here. This Reminiscence was first released back in, was it like September or October 2021? Chrono Capsule here by Silent Room was released at the last KEC, the 10th, which they finally able to do. They felt like it was comfortable enough time during the pandemic here to go on with the show, as they would say. And in early 2022, they decided to run the KEC the 10th and be able to show off some more sight reads to the grand finalists here. They were sitting on a lot of content that they were unable to release just because of the pandemic, unfortunately. And this was one of the first things that they wanted to show off.
This also has one of the coolest gimmicks as well, I believe.
Yeah, this is the visual chart I like to show people when they inquire about what Sound Voltex is. It's got the nicest background. Again, we mentioned quickly earlier that this game has like live 2D animations, so they really strongly benefit from that here with the theme of going back in time. I believe on the stream layout, it's a little bit hidden, but you can kind of see on the player cam, there's a console on screen where the buttons are. And so as you see right about now, the console actually changes. So during different time periods of the game, different versions of the game obviously have different UIs and stuff like that. So this goes back in time and just shows you all of the old UIs one by one. So right now we're on the 5th version of the game. Now we're going back to the 4th version. And it's just going to keep going. So it's got a very interesting visual theme.
Yeah, you can see in the background that it's counting the number in Roman numerals as well. That's to refer to the current version of Sound Voltex. So we're currently on version 6. And as we go back in time to the first version, you get to see the kind of visual effects of what it looked like back then.
Yeah, this is a great callback to the original version of Sound Voltex, where they remastered the Rassus, the pink-haired girl you see on the screen here, in her original outfit from Sound Voltex Booth, which is the first version. As you can see with this insane button pattern that leviern just played here, that was the first time we also saw that, and it was ridiculous to see that on a sight read to be played as well. Getting a 999.
What is that?
Oh my lord!
Wow,
Absolutely insane.
I believe time's coming up.
Yeah, no, we have one more song to show off here. That was the end of the 20s, in the very least. We showed off 16 of the 17 20s here. We won't show off the last 20 just for, keep it a little bit mysterious on that point. But we want to show off what was considered to be the last song of the 3rd version here. This is hashtag Endroll, or as the community says, just Endroll. Chat, if you can get your hey guys ready, you'll understand why in a little bit here. This song is just a big, the final song of Gravity Wars. When the game still had a bit of a story going on a little bit. in the mission system and stuff like that, which is a long relic of the past now, unfortunately. But once you completed all the missions and everything, and towards the tail end of just the Gravity Wars version, they released this song along with a great, nice credit roll going on in the background.
We also kind of get to show off that this game has a lot of different charts. We haven't really gotten a chance to show off like a pure laser chart. Looks like this. It's really confusing. It's definitely a big barrier of entry, I think, just because it's pretty different from your usual rhythm game. You know, you're not really tapping anything. You're just moving the knobs. So.
I have some love to share here for leviern's performance if we have a little bit of time.
Of course.
We've got $5 from Raccoon who says, can we please have leviern complete a security captcha check to make sure they're human and not a robot? Also, we have $1,000 from Incoherent who says, there are too many notes in these charts. Please remove 3.
We got a little bit more time.
We also have $25 from Viz Leahy, who says, had to donate in honor of this superb gameplay.
Check out the hands here. Something that the game does a lot. Forcing you to hold one of the FX buttons and then changing the lasers, forcing you to do a crossover for them. And with that, we are done. So, time.
Yeah,
with a perfect play.
Incredible.
Absolutely amazing showcase there. Nice to end on a good note with a nice little perfect play there. Other than that, I mean, you know, leviern, do you have any shoutouts you want to give out?
Yeah. Once again, thanks to all the donors for giving me this opportunity to showcase this game. I'd like to give some shoutouts. Huge thanks to Will. Thanks to Panga and Azer for motivating me to stream. Thanks to Toter. I love Toter. And thanks to the whole Voltex community for supporting me. まだ日本語を勉強中です。応援してくれるseatrusさん、Yu-dachiさん、かめりあさんと視聴者の皆さん、ありがとうございました。本気で感謝してる。
leviern showing a little bit of love for the Japanese community who's been supporting him as you know, the West's top ranker, as they like to call him a little bit there. You know, like you said, shout outs to all the little Voltex communities around the world, basically, you know, keeping this game alive. Shout outs to everybody in terms of all of that. If you have, you know, if you're interested into playing this game, you know, feel free to check out voltexes.com. It's Voltex with an ES at the end, make it plural. It has a couple of great guides in order to get started on playing Sound VOLTEX EXCEED GEAR on cloud at home. You know, you're able to check out and find your local Sound VOLTEX EXCEED GEAR arcade cabinet at different round ones in North America and such like that, and also a bunch of little local arcades that may have it as well. If you're interested in figuring out what leviern is up to, feel free to check out his website at leviern.com, where he has a link to his Discord, Twitter, Twitch, and just like everything like that to get, you know, in touch with him, basically. Thank you, GDQ.
I'd like to just take some time again, though, to thank everyone for actually meeting this incentive. It looked pretty hard to meet. 200K is quite a lot, so it was very, very nice to see that we were able to do it, and I hope everybody was able to enjoy the fantastic gameplay. We got to introduce a game that's not so common here, and I hope it was a good experience to watch.